Welcome back to the series of talks on linguistics. Today's talk is about regional variation in language. The relevant discipline is sociolinguistics, and the key term is variation. Variation is divided into two parts, social variation and regional variation. Today we focus only on regional variation. The varieties of language that are related to locations, to areas, geographical places, cities and towns. That is called regional variation. So as you see in here, we have standard language. So what is standard language? The standard language is actually the language that is used in formal setting, like at universities, lectures, newspapers, TV, important TV programs and media. That's a print or the press language that is actually associated with administrative, commercial and educational centers. So probably in English, the standard language is the Queen's language, that is RP or received pronunciation, that is basically used in mostly written language, and even if in spoken language, that is very formal, free from slangish language, free from colloquial language, free from informal language. So it is clearly associated with education and broadcasting in public context, and is more easily described in terms of features associated with written language, vocabulary, spelling and grammar than spoken language. So for instance, it could be said that in London, in England, Londoners probably speak the standard language. I don't know about Kazakhstan, maybe it is Almaty language, or what is the standard language in here? Is it Almaty or Astana? What is it? Or what kind of Kazakh language is considered formal and standard? What city? You never know? What is the standard language here? Kazakh. I know. What is the standard Kazakh? Is it spoken in Almaty? Spoken in Astana? Spoken in Kazakhstan?
I think in Central Kazakhstan.
Central Kazakhstan. All right. Mostly the capitals of the cities of the countries. Capitals of the countries have got the standard language. Like in France, people living in Paris, they speak particular standard French. So next topic is accent and dialect. The question that is posed here is, what is the difference between accent and dialect? Accent includes only aspects of pronunciation. However, dialect includes pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. So which one is bigger and includes the other one? Dialect. Dialect is bigger than accent. What are components of dialect? Pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary. What is the element or the component of accent? It is pronunciation related only to phonetics and phonology. The next key word is dialectology. Easy peasy, as the name suggests, is the study of dialects. Different aspects of dialects in different cities, for instance. In every country, there are different dialects. Dialects spoken in Kazakhstan, dialects spoken in Shymkent, dialects spoken in Taras.
Yes.
Dialects spoken different places and different villages have got their own dialects. So that could be the examples of geographical variation. So what is the role of dialectology? It is distinguishing between different dialects in a country. The next topic is regional dialects and the term and the acronym NOR. Regional dialects related to geographical differences and geographical dialects. Different cities, different areas have got different dialects. However, in order for the scientists to analyze and to investigate dialects or regional dialects, there is a criterion, there is an acronym that is called NORM. What does NORM refer to? NORM refers to non-mobile, not moving. So who are the, suppose that as a researcher you'd like to study the dialect in Taras or in Shimken, give me another area. Kızılorda?
Yes, Aktau.
Aktau, for instance. So, who can be your informants? Who do you go and talk to and ask information? It is the acronym NORM. The informants or the people who you interview must be non-mobile, older, rural, and male speakers. Why non-mobile? Non-mobile means people who do not travel a lot. If people travel a lot, their accent and their pronunciation and their language differs. So it is not pure. It must be also rural. The rural areas, not urban areas. Because the rurals living in the village, still they keep the language. They keep their own pronunciation. The pronunciation is not changed. But when they move to cities and they become urban, they like to speak the prestigious language, the standard language. So they are not representative of the population. The next is male speakers. Why male? Because female speakers or women would like to appear dignified and prestigious and high class. So most of the time they change their accents, they change their pronunciation, and they try to speak the standard language. But for male speakers, it is not the case. Male speakers, sometimes they maintain their original accent or pronunciation. So this is NORM. So NORM stands for non-mobile, not moving, non-mobile, older, rural, male speakers. That's what NORM stands for. The next term is, we got the idea of, I talked about norms, bilingualism. What is bilingualism? Bi means two. In some countries, you see there are two or more languages spoken. That is called bilingual countries. A bilingual country is like Canada. It's like Belgium. So in Canada, the English and French are actually spoken by the people. In some areas, you see English, and in some areas you see the French-speaking country. The communities. And also in Kazakhstan is a bilingual country because almost everybody speaks Kazakh and Russian, and it can be trilingual because some people also speak English. So the bilingualism refers to the multilingualism refers to the occasion or manifestation of language proficiency in more than one language. And that is very interesting. It shows diversity of language, it shows diversity of race, diversity of ethnicity in the country. And it's very interesting to study the reasons why. For instance, Russian is still spoken by people, and also what is the status of Kazakh language. And which one do you think is more significant in your country? Is it Russian or is Kazakh? Is more important?
Yes.
So what would you identify yourself as Russian speakers or Kazakh speakers? So how do you, when you speak Russian, how do you feel? Do you feel any different? Do you feel any identity difference?
No.
It's the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what about you speak in Kazakh? The same.
Yes.
So why do you employ Russian for communication? To appear different or whatever.
It comes
What is the reason? What is the reason why Russian is employed at university, for instance?
Maybe because of the like.
Because we have many ethnicities and nationalities.
That's the diversity, and some people are actually Russian,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
from Russian background. Yes.
Yeah. So like
Yes.
more than like whatever it's Russian person or it's like Uzbek or Uyghur, something like that. They all know Russian language.
So that's a lingua franca. You know lingua franca? Lingua franca is the language, common language for the people whose mother tongue is different.
Yes.
For example, English is a lingua franca because it is the language of business, international language. Probably Russian is the lingua franca for the people from Turkmenistan, from Tajikistan, from Kyrgyzstan. That's interesting to know. So Russian is the lingua franca. So the next one is, I talked about diglossia. What is diglossia? It's a situation involving two distinct varieties of a language called diglossia. Exists in some countries. In diglossia, there is a low variety acquired locally and used for everyday affairs, and a high variety or special variety learned in school and used for important matters. A type of diglossia exists in Arabic-speaking countries, where the high variety or classic Arabic is used in formal settings or formal lectures, serious political events, and especially in religious discussions. Through a long period, the low variety is the local version of the language, such as Egyptian Arabic or Lebanese Arabic. So the high variety of Arabic is used for the language of prestige, language of formal language, for formal discussions, for religious discussions. The low variety is informal and is used for daily matters, for shopping, for conversation, friendly talks. That is what is meant by diglossia. The next part of this talk is on language planning and language policies. This is a very sensitive issue and politically oriented. In some countries, what is language planning? Selection of standard language by the government. Selection of formal language by the government. Selection of the language of education by the government. So this is called language planning. So for instance, in Belgium, there are a couple of languages, some French, also German, also local languages. So it's the government who plans what language is the language of education. It happens also in Canada. It happens. What is the language of education in your country?
Kazakh and Russian.
Kazakh and Russian. So which one? You can't.
Both
of them.
Yeah.
So here the language planning has actually specified the idea that two languages are the language of education, which is great because minorities and majority of the people are using the language, and there is no linguicide, there is no language isolation, and there is so everybody is entitled to use the language of his or her mother tongue. So language planning, the next question is, what are the stages of language planning? So the stage one is selection, that is choosing the official language. The second stage is codification, in which basic grammars, dictionaries, and written models are used to establish a standard variety. The third process is elaboration, with the standard variety being developed for use in all aspects of social life and appearance of body, of literary work written in the standard. The next process is implementation, is largely a matter of government attempts to encourage the use of a standard language, and the last stage is acceptance by people. Is the final stage when a substantial majority of the population use the standard and think of it as the national language, playing part in not only social but also national identity. So I get back to the stages. What are stages of language planning? Selection, codification, elaboration, implementation, and acceptance. The next topic is pidgin. What is pidgin? Pidgin is basically a broken, is a broken language, broken English, for instance, with limited vocabulary, limited idioms, and very, very simple grammatical structure, used as a lingua franca, for instance, for business, for shopping. So this is called a variety of language. Described as pidgin is often discussed as groups of people who had a lot of contact. They use it. The origin of the term pidgin is from Chinese version of English word business. So pidgin is very simple English. For instance, there are people who do not have a high command of the language, and they go to England, for instance. Somebody from here goes to England, level of proficiency is very low, so he uses pidgin English. What is pidgin English? For example, he wants to say how much is it. He cannot say how much. He says money, money. That is pidgin. Or he says expensive, expensive. It means reduce, give me. He cannot say basically, please give me a discount. He say it is expensive, expensive. It's pidgin, and it's broken, and it is very simple, and it's only used for communication purposes. And then this pidgin can be turned into Creole when this pidgin turns out to be the mother tongue of a whole community. So what is the difference between pidgin and Creole? Creole turns out to be the native language of a particular community. However, pidgin is not the mother tongue of a certain community. So that's the discussion for today. I just let me recapitulate, give a brief summary of today's talk. As I said before, the name of the whole discipline is sociolinguistics. What is the key term in sociolinguistics? Or language of society, the key term is variation. How many kinds of variations are there in any language? 2 kinds. Geographical or regional variation and social variation. Today I talked about geographical variation. Next topic is about social variation. What do we mean by geographical variation? Is the language varieties in relation to geography, locations, cities, villages. So any variation of language that you can notice with respect to different places. For instance, the way language is spoken in the capital and the way that the language is spoken in villages and small towns are different. I talked about the difference between accent and dialect. That accent is only includes pronunciation, but dialect includes pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. I talked about dialectology as the study of dialect, how distinct dialect are manifested. Talked about norm. What does norm stand for? Norm is a technique to study certain varieties of language that stands for non-mobile, older, rural, and male speakers. I talked about bilingualism, the manifestation of 2 languages in a country, like French and English, or even more than that, French, English, and Russian, or in here Basically, the bilingualism is Russian and Kazakh languages. I talked about diglossia, high varieties and low varieties of a language. I talked about language planning. What are the stages of language planning? What are the stages? Stage one, I already talked about the stages, I reckon, yes? Selection, codification, elaboration, implementation, and acceptance. I also talked about Pidgin, that is a kind of simplified language, any language which is simplified for the purpose of communication. Simple grammar, simple vocabulary, simple pronunciation. Thanks for your attention. I will get back to you. I hope this talk has been useful and helpful to you. I will get back to you next week with the topic on social variation. Thank you so much and look after yourselves.